here's Ed Bernstein.
Well, let's not forget, we have an election this year, and a little bit later in our show, Kate Marshall, who is a candidate for lieutenant governor, will be on. But right now, Dr. Rob Brown, who is an MD, radiologist, and got interested in, hey, how safe is the world around us, the world we live in? The water, the air, the food we eat, things we clean with. Wrote a book, Toxic Home, Conscious Home. And I wanted to ask you first, Doctor, about water, because I mean this is a perennial argument every time you go out to dinner. Bottled water, tap water, sparkling. What type, mineral? Do you have to get something from France or Italy, or is something in America okay?
Yeah, I mean it's an issue we all deal with, right? So I believe that the water that comes in the glass bottles are the best for our health. And as I describe in the book, the plastic water bottles they're dangerous. They have all kinds of chemicals in the plastic that can leach into the water. You can't see them, you can't taste them, but they can affect your health. So optimally, we want to have water purified from a countertop system and just drink out of a glass. But yes, when you go to a restaurant, you're kind of stuck with the
So that's what you recommend for your home? That
yes.
You just got, what, a reverse osmosis system, or what type of system?
I like the countertop systems that it's a gravity drip system, and you pour the water in from the top, and it goes through a carbon filter and maybe some other filters. It takes out inorganic compounds and organic compounds, and so you're left with a clean water.
But when you are traveling and you're out of your house and you want to pick up a bottle of water, how do you know what type to get, other than being in a glass bottle?
I think that there are two major types of bottled water. There are the types of bottled water that are basically put through a process to clean the water, such as that Dasani and the Coke and Pepsi types of water. Those companies produce water that is treated.
So they're just regular tap water that's been treated, cleansed, and then bottled.
Right. And then you have the other types of water that may be spring water that really means it comes out of the ground. And it can be contaminated with all the other contaminants that we find in our groundwater, especially now that we have so much industry around the country. So
and there's no testing, there's no disclosures on the bottles.
Right. The bottled water, it goes through, there's some testing, but it's not as much as you would think. Certainly, a lot of the chemicals that we're concerned about that can affect our health are not tested for in bottled water.
And how's the water here in Las Vegas? Do you have a chance to sample that?
I've had some good water and I had some bad water. I don't know, there was one place I went to, I tasted the chlorine. I bring a portable water filter with me that has a carbon.
No, you don't. You have a water tester.
No, it's a portable water filter, and so I can get tap water, squeeze it through the filter, and fill a glass with it, and it's healthy.
Wow.
So yeah, they sell those.
You take that into a restaurant with you?
No.
And how about the air? I mean, we talk about water. Let's talk about air. The air we breathe. Now, we know there's a lot of pollution, and we have a lot of dust here in southern Nevada. But let's talk about what goes on in the house. Things we can control.
So I like to think about the air in two separate categories. There are particulates, microparticulates, which are the tiny little dust particles that we breathe in, and they can get stuck in our airways. But then there's also these organic compounds, these volatile organic compounds. They're called VOCs, and they emanate from paint and adhesives and furniture and flooring and all kinds of things in the home, and they just kind of emanate, and you breathe them in, and they can get absorbed into your bloodstream, and they can cause hormonal effects on your body and all kinds of reactions that you may not be aware of.
I don't know how you even protect against it. I mean, these type of things, you have people who are cleaning the carpets, so you have solutions that's going into the carpets, into the windows, into the walls, bleaches, cleansers.
Right.
I mean, they all have to have some kind of negative effect, I would think.
Yes. Now, what they've discovered is that plants actually absorb a lot of these compounds. So if you bring houseplants into your home, it has a beneficial effect on the air. Not only do they produce oxygen, but they remove these VOCs from the air. So my recommendation is get a high rating MERV unit value. The air cleaners, the filters, they have a value called a MERV value. And so if you get one that's a better quality, that's maybe pleated, you'll remove all the particulates, and then if you bring houseplants into your home, then you can remove the VOCs.
You're talking about the normal air filters that you put in, in your returns, right?
Exactly.
Go to Home Depot and buy one of these.
Right.
And what about the things you can't see? We were talking before the show about electromagnetic fields, also referred to as EMFs.
Correct, yeah. So yes, the book, I wanted to bring the reader across a bridge, because most of us are sensual beings, right? We experience life with our five senses. If we can't feel it, see it, touch it, we don't really believe that it's real. So in the book, I'm trying to bring the reader to understand that even those things that we can't see are real, potentially, and they can affect our health. And EMF is a good example. So, we have these electromagnetic fields all around us now. They're becoming more and more prevalent as the technology increases. The health effects are still being determined in large regard. We do know that EMFs cause heating effects. I mean, that's indisputable, right? We know that if you put a cell phone up to your head, your skin gets warm, right? But what you also may not realize is that your brain's getting warm. The heat actually permeates through your body. It's a form of energy. And so if you have the cell phone, if a woman keeps it in her bra strap, then she's heating up the breast tissue. If a man keeps it in his pocket, he's heating up. So the heat has effects all by itself.
And how about, because, all right, so it's not safe to put the phone up here. So somebody would use a Bluetooth.
Right.
So now you have a headphone up here. Is that any better?
No, exactly. The Bluetooth also, it's an EMF receiver, and so you're bringing the EMF right into your ear canal. They do have products called Bluetooth, where it's just a clear plastic tubing that brings the volume up to your ear without the EMF. But I just use it like a walkie-talkie. I always put it on speakerphone, and I talk to it like a walkie-talkie. And if I'm in public, I lower the volume so that people don't hear my conversation. But I think that's the.
Look, how do you? I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I'm sure there's a science involved in this, but how do you balance that from being OCD?
I just try to do the best I can. I figure you don't. Yes, you can't live in a box. We have to live in society, but you do the best you can. And I believe that the more you're aware and the more you're conscious about all these things in the environment, you can make healthier choices, and perhaps spare yourself some disease.
Right. I mean, look, everybody talks about, hey, what's healthy today? They find out, 10 years from now, it wasn't healthy, it was dangerous. I mean, eat fish, don't eat fish, mercury, no mercury. I mean,
right.
So what's your feeling about fish? I mean, are you eating fish?
I eat fish. I eat it once a week. I limit my portions. From what I understand, the mercury content in the fish is going down for the first time in a long time because we were closing down all these coal power plants, and so the mercury in the environment is actually lessening. But still, I don't think it's healthy to have fish more than one meal a week.
And what would the other meals be? I mean, because meat,
I have chicken, and I have steak, and I eat.
You're not worried about the salt and nitrates and.
I do worry about nitrates, yeah. But again, every now and then, I believe that if you live in moderation, that you should be okay.
And how about personal products? I know that sometimes men always seem to be complaining about their wives with hairspray, for instance, and deodorants and sprays like that. I mean, they've been no good for a while, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The personal care products industry is basically unregulated. And the labeling requirements are nil, and so it's very hard to look at a package and assess what's in the product. And so, You know what I tell people a couple of things. One is if it needs to be shaken, then you know that there's no emulsifier in it.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing, right. So if it needs to be shaken, that's a good thing. If you're looking for a product and it has an expiration date, that's a good thing because it means that there are few preservatives in it. If it doesn't have a color, that means that there's no dyes in it, so that's a good thing. So there are ways that you can assess your product for being perhaps maybe healthier than an alternative, but less is better.
So oftentimes what looks the best and smells the nicest is not the healthiest.
Correct. I mean, the industry, they know what appeals to us, right? That's a whole science of how can I make a product that's most appealing? And that's playing, again, the fact that we're sensual beings, that's playing with that desire for us. But it's important to be aware that that's what's under, that's not necessarily means that it's healthy. Right.
Now, being a radiologist, you must have an opinion on microwave ovens.
I don't like the microwave oven, yeah. I haven't used one in many years. They do emit EMFs. I think when they first came out, the vendors said that they didn't emit radiation, but I have an EMF detector, and every place that I brought that detector that has a microwave oven, the EMF, it radiates at least 20, 30 feet away from the oven.
So you want to be standing still away from a microwave. And what about the food that you're heating in a microwave?
I'm not sure what happens to the food. I personally don't like the way it tastes. I don't like the unevenness of the cooking. And I don't think that the science is settled on what it actually does to the proteins and other materials in the food. So I personally don't use one. I don't like them.
And let's talk very briefly about, we don't have much time left, about GMOs.
Okay.
Genetically modified
organisms. Yeah. So GMOs started, of course, when Monsanto created this chemical Roundup using glyphosate to as a non-selective herbicide, and then they created a seed. First it was corn and soybean that could grow in the soil that had been treated with this glyphosate.
Right, so first they're trying to kill the weeds with pesticides, and then they're creating a product that can withstand that pesticide.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and I think the initial thought was that the plants that were growing in the soil that had been treated with Roundup, they weren't absorbing the Roundup. So they thought that the corn and the soybean and the other products that they're making that are GMO varieties, that they were safe because they weren't absorbing the glyphosate. But I think what people know now is that the plants do absorb the glyphosate. So when you have corn that's GMO corn, you are getting corn plus you're getting these chemicals mixed in with the corn. And the problem with glyphosate, one of them is that it's an antibiotic. In fact, I believe Monsanto patented glyphosate it could be used as an antibiotic. So if you swallow it, you're supposed to have trillions of bacteria lining your gut. And if you consistently eat antibiotics, with the glyphosate, you're killing off that part of your microbiome, which you need for good health. And so that's a problem.
And then, of course, there's cross-contamination because the wind will blow across these fields and move the seeds and the Roundup or whatever chemicals are in that over to a field of corn that may be organic.
Right. Right. And then the other problem is that now they're using glyphosate to desiccate wheat fields. So before they do, we don't have GMO wheat, but because the wheat is being pre-treated with glyphosate to kill it off, the wheat kernels are most likely also contaminated with glyphosate.
Okay, now I'm scared to eat, drink, or live anywhere. Oh, you're really making my day. Name of the book is Toxic Home, Conscious Home. A mindful approach to wellness at home. Dr. Rob Brown, thank you. We'll be right back with Lieutenant Governor candidate Kate Marshall.